statistic. I manifested the motive, the mission. Had got sick of sitting around and just wishing I roll up the sleeves to get out and go get it. Some kept it pushing, some blind to the vision, but I had the key for the doorway existed. Way up the ladder, they can't even fathom the purpose I'm setting it. Permanent, infinite. Why you think I had to go and get timid? You can't avoid the future when it's imminent. I cannot be a statistic. I manifest for the doorway existed. Way up the ladder, they can't even fathom the purpose I'm setting it. Permanent, infinite. Why you think I had to go and get timid? You can't avoid the future when it's imminent.
Welcome back to today's episode of Grind Hard, Hustle Smart with me, Charles Johnson. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, today I just want to talk about something that many of us, myself included, have often taken for granted and just shut it off to the side because it's just been something that's been honestly just hard to deal with and think about. And, you know, first and foremost, let me get this out the way. Let me just say I apologize, for the long time within each episode or between each episode. Many of you don't know, but this is a labor of one. I do this out of love. I do this out of passion, joy, because I love bringing this information to you all and talking to you all constantly and consistently. And I failed on that end. So let me apologize in that regard. But also, let me say this. I am approaching my 90th and 100th episode here in the next few months, and I plan on reaching a goal of 100 episodes by the time this year is over. And I'm, 18 episodes away from that. So I got some work to do, right? But with that, none of that would be possible without the love and support of you all. And if you all could just help this channel grow more by sharing this content or just leaving feedback for me on what you think would help make this show even better, that would go a long, long way. And I would greatly appreciate you all's help in that front and that aspect. With that said, I want to talk about something today that might rub some people the wrong way, but I feel like it needs to be discussed. It's something that I've been going through. I've been on a journey this past year, since last year, not even 2025, but year to date. I got my master's degree. I finally finished that and, finishing multiple certificates. But you all know that I'm constantly educating myself and reading just to learn more and more and more so that I can be of use, of value. But one thing that I often forget about and have kind of pushed to the side is my own feelings and my own emotions, the way I feel about many things in this world. And it brought to my mind another issue that I don't think as men we have made ourselves available to talk about or actually deal with on a personal level. And it's because it's often met with criticism, with critique, with harshness, with rebuke, with some form of rebuttal that doesn't ever work in our favor. And as men, we aren't taught how to be expressive with our language or our emotions or the way that we feel. We're not taught to express them in such a colorful way. But what society has done to men, I feel like, is a crime because it doesn't look at us as humans. We're machines, a means to an end. We're judged by what we can provide. We're judged by our inaction and action. We're judged by what we can do for others and what we can't do for others. We're constantly being looked at and graded all the time, consistently and constantly, and it's tiring. So I want to talk about it. But I want to talk about it on a deeper level, not sort of the peripheral level that you see out on social media that gets clicks and all that stuff. What I want to talk about is something at a deeper level. And as a man, this is, difficult for me to talk about. And it's the emotional isolation that we deal with on a constant daily basis. And I think it plays a big part in why we act the way we act and do what we do, and why men often come off as quote unquote dogs or having a lack of emotion. None of this stuff is happening outside of some form of cause and effect. You know, and the laws of the universe, the laws of nature says for every action is an equal and opposite reaction. And I'm not saying what's happening to men in terms of emotional isolation is right or wrong. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is this, that it needs to be studied, it needs to be looked at, and men need to be looked at as human beings with the full rights and capabilities and scope and scale of emotions and feelings and value as everyone else. Because women and children are valued in this world regardless or without any regard, for what they can provide or do for another person. But men are looked at in terms of what they can provide, what they can't provide, what they do, what they don't do, how they feel, how they refuse to feel. It's a litany of things. So I can go on and on and on. But let me get deep down into it. And so let's talk about emotional isolationism. It's probably a new term I just created, but I'm talking about emotional isolation, right? And it's not just loneliness. It's a trained inability to express, process, or even, identify one's own emotions in a healthy way. And this is something that I've dealt with personally because I went through many, countless sessions of cognitive behavioral therapy. I'm also certified as a cognitive behavioral therapist, cognitive behavioral therapy life coach. I am not a therapist. Let me say that again for legal reasons. Do not come to me for a diagnosis. Now, if you want life coaching, I got you. But I am not a cognitive behavioral therapist. Let me put that out there. That was a slip of the tongue. I apologize. But why does this matter? It's because as young boys, we're often taught early on, don't cry, man up, or just handle it. And that's a complete refusal and denial of the emotional psyche of a young man or young boy. Our emotions are taught to us to be thrown away from a young age. And it's a crime because I think that stunts a lot of us in terms of emotional growth and emotional maturity from a young age. Like myself, if you're vertically challenged like myself, I stopped growing in 8th grade. I remember I was the tallest guy in my friend group for the longest, man. I could have swore to you I was going to be in the league, and whether it be the NFL or NBA, because my dad was, 6'2", 6'3", so I knew for a fact your boy was going to be playing on Sundays or somewhere professionally throughout the week because I was fast, I was athletic, I was gifted. But 8th grade is where it stopped for me. I stopped at 5'6.5", 5'7" on a good day. And for many of us men, we stopped growing emotionally. Our growth was stunted emotionally as toddlers because we were taught to ignore our feelings, ignore our emotions, push it down deep, never talk about it, right? We were taught in so many words that vulnerability is a liability. And emotions become a threat to our own masculinity. Crying is something little girls do. Going and seeking out attention in terms of comfort is something little girls and women do. Men don't do that. And as we grow older as men and we become providers and we become protectors and ultimately we become performers, because we're not ever allowed to be people in pain. I was just watching the episode of The Pivot. I love The Pivot with Ryan Clark and Fred Taylor and Channing Crowder. And I would love to connect with these men and just talk to them on a man level and just learn their stories. But I'm not going to say I'm not important enough because I believe I'm important. And just like I believe what Channing Crowder said, just like he believes that people are privileged to be in his space because they sought him out, I believe I'm privileged to be in their space. And so whenever they're ready, if I ever come to that level where I'm worthy enough to, because obviously you bring on guests to have people bring eyes to the show because business is business, right? But I would love to talk to them and just pick their minds because they have some real moments amongst men that is visually and audibly tangible for the world to see. And I was just watching one of their most recent episodes, and Channing Crowder was talking about how his father, Big Randy, passed away. And it was just touching for me because you see this group of men, 3 men who are all you will classify as alpha males, right? Were at the top of their game in terms of being a professional athlete. Whatever you may say, and this is why I always respect people at the top of their game. Whatever we say, you can call an NBA player, an NFL player, an Olympic athlete, whatever, a bust, right? In my mind, there's no such thing. Because all the people that are classifying and titling these people as these terms, number one, it's kind of demasculating to say that they didn't do something, but also it's projecting because, number one, to even be in that conversation is a privilege. Like in my mind, if I made it to the NFL and somebody said I'm a bust, my answer would be thank you. Thank you. Because I've made it to the top. I made it to the top tier of professional sports in my chosen sport. I made it to become a professional. And guess what? I just wasn't good enough. But I know I'm better than 99 of the other people that have tried. Because I cannot be classified as a bust. And this is just a greater life lesson for men around the world and people in general. You cannot be classified as a bust as something that you've never tried or been good enough at to be deemed unworthy of it. I want you to hear that loud and clear. You cannot be classified as a bust at something that you've never tried or been deemed worthy enough of to be good at some point in time. That's just a fact. People who never try aren't classified as busts, but people who have tried are. People would say, Charles, you're a bust as a podcaster. And I know I'm going on a tangent here, but this goes into the greater theme of what I'm talking about here. Charles, you're a bust as a speaker. You're a bust as a father, as a husband. You're a bust as a podcaster. Thank you. I appreciate that because I've tried. Charles, you're a bust as a soldier. Thank you. I've tried. I did it. 10 and a half years I was a U.S. soldier, and my career, honestly did not end on my terms. But I did it for 10 and a half years. And I'm part of a club that many Americans will never, ever be a part of. That's the same way I look at these professional athletes, because they're men just doing what they know to do and what they've trained themselves to do year in and year out. And they saw a dream and they went after it. And guess what? Sometimes all our dreams and all our aspirations don't work out. That's just the way it is. That's just life. But it doesn't define us. It doesn't mean that we're a failure, because we have succeeded where others have failed at lower levels. And that's just a fact. So let's talk about the causes of, well, before I go on, let me say this. I'm getting a little twisted in my words and my thinking. So let me bring myself back to center, right? The point that I was trying to make with Channing Crowder and Fred Taylor and Ryan Clark is this, is that what they're doing on the Pivot podcast is unique, because you're seeing a group of men, of alpha males, of class A characters, men who are dominant in their fields, whatever area it is now. Ryan Clark is on top of the world in terms of being a sports broadcaster. Channing Crowder is a magnificent businessman, and he was on radio here in Miami for the longest time. And then Fred Taylor, Hall of Fame running back, for much of my childhood. Man that I look up to, because I wanted to be an NFL player at some point in time. I think my voice has value. I want to be somebody who's heard on radio waves and airwaves and YouTube and all types of media. Hence is why I'm here. I look at these men as role models for myself, and to see them show these intimate moments where they share tears and laughs and hugs and have real men conversations goes, to me, it transcends sports. It transcends even the guests that they have on, because we get to see these men that we look at as icons as human beings, having real emotions and having real life issues and having real consequences and rewards of those issues. We see them play out. And that's what that episode with Channing Crowder reminded me of. Channing Crowder isn't just a podcaster. He's not just somebody who was a linebacker for the Miami Dolphins. He wasn't just somebody who was a linebacker for the University of Florida. He's not just this great businessman. He has a real life. He has a wife and children. He has a father that he was disconnected with, came back with, reminisced with, reconciled with, loved, and then his father passed away, and now he let the world into his life. We have the privilege of seeing his raw emotions of understanding and dealing and coming to grips with the death of his own father, and I love it. It is beautiful to see, and it's unique because oftentimes we portray ourselves as men as these big, strong things that can't be harmed, that can't be tamed, that don't feel any emotions towards anything, let alone another man, and we get to see it raw in form. I love it. We need more of it. So let's talk about the causes of some of this, right? And one of the things that we can say is mental health struggles, depression, anxiety, self-harming ideations go undiagnosed and are masked with either anger, addiction, or some type of apathy. That's how men do this. That's how we do life. That's why, tragically, more men die well before their spouse. Because we have the weight of the world on our shoulders. We have the pressure of the world constantly viewing us through the lens of something that we can provide or something that we can do. And when we fail to meet those expectations, it weighs on us. And we have to deal with it quietly and silently. And it eats at you from the inside. You may say, Charles, how do you know? Because I, too, had dealt with addiction. I still go to AA right now. I'm over a year and a half of being sober, not having one drop of alcohol. None. And it feels amazing because now I see the world through a different lens. And I see people for what they really are. I'm not just going to events just to have a drink. I'm not going to barbecues just to have a drink and be foolish and see who can drink the most. The things that I go to now, the alcohol is not what centralizes all of us being together. It's the emotional connection that we all have together. Now I can love my family as the way they need to be loved. And I can express emotions that oftentimes I would just sit at home and have a bottle of whiskey and a shot glass and just deal with it that way. Now I'm in a space where I have to deal with my emotions in a healthy way that's beneficial for others, but more importantly, beneficial for me. And anger goes a long way with that because even when I was drinking and I was dealing with all of these different emotions and having no healthy way, I got angry at the world because they put me in this position, but I was angry with myself because I know I'm a better man than what I'm portraying. How dare I be addicted to this thing? Let this chemical, this concoction have control over me in a way that I would never give to anybody else. And when you think about it, it's because alcohol doesn't have a memory. Alcohol won't tell your deepest, darkest secrets. Alcohol won't give you rebuke, won't give you rejection. Alcohol won't go tell everybody what you told it in the hopes that it belittles you and embarrasses you. There's no vulnerability with alcohol. But alcohol destroys you. Destroys your family, destroys your mind. Even till this day, memories are coming back to me that I had no recollection of because I was so deep in my addiction. That's crazy. It's like the brain waves and the paths and the synapses that were numbed now are connecting and talking to one another in a healthy way because they're not being hindered and I remember things. It's an amazing and scary feeling all at the same time. Another cause of this emotional isolation is broken relationships, because oftentimes as men, we can't build healthy relationships because we don't know how to build emotional empathy or intimacy, with others. We don't know how to do it, specifically towards women. And this is just a silent epidemic that men are dealing with, that society sees, but we don't want to deal with at all. And I don't know why. Men were dying emotionally long before we ever die physically. Men are shells of themselves. Their soul leaves long before we ever physically pass from this world to the next. So let's talk about, why does society decide to ignore this? Because ultimately, men are still expected to be strong no matter what. Can't be weak. Because vulnerability in men threatens outdated gender roles. Men are supposed to be the providers. We're supposed to be the protectors. What do we do when the provider needs provided? What do we do when the protector needs protection? There's nobody for us to turn around and tap on, because we're so busy pushing everybody forward and taking the arrows and the shots and the hits to the back, because that's what the world has taught us that we should be doing. But that's not how God intended it. Because ultimately, acknowledging it will require redefining strength. Most men are trained and taught and molded to have some form of stoicism, to be stoic all the time, to act as if nothing bothers us, when everything can be wrong with us. We're supposed to act like nothing bothers us. We will have to switch ourselves from being stoic to self-aware. And that's something that society just doesn't want to see from men. You see it all the time when men have their boundaries and their lines that they will not cross, and things that they will not tolerate, called sassy men, weak men, vulnerable men. It's crazy. And the truth is this, and I'll end it here. Men don't need to be told to be better before they're ever told you matter. Men do not need to be told to be better before we're ever told that we matter. You want to know why men matter? Look at the amount of fatherlessness across this country and across the world, and the effects of that throughout society. I'm a strong believer that if we made a push to put more men in the home, to have more fathers in the home, then a lot of the crime and a lot of the societal problems that we see would not completely disappear, because there's no one final solution to anything, but it would decrease by a lot. Because a lot of these crimes are being perpetrated statistically more by young men, YNs, right, is because that as young men, we're constantly searching and seeking out our importance and where we fit in this world. And there's no better person to help you see your purpose and your fit and how you shape and what your piece is in this world and where you have value in this world than an older man, a mentor, a teacher, somebody, a father, more importantly, to say, hey, young man, this is not the vision that the world, and more importantly, that I have for your life. This is the path. Please walk this path. No, don't please. I command you to walk this path. Men call boys up to be men. That's just a matter of fact. Men call boys up to be men. I remember one time, brings me to tears oftentimes when I think about it. And to this individual's eyes, it may not be that important. To mine, it's something that I will never forget. I grew up in a place called, or I spent the last few of my high school years in a place called the King's Ranch. It's now called the King's Home. It's a home for delinquent boys and girls and battered and abused women. And this individual, his name is Mr. Riggins. And Mr. Riggins, if you hear this, I got nothing but love for you. And he's like a father to me. When God or when life had chosen a path for my father who wasn't, involved in my life in terms of fatherhood, he put many men in my life who were my father in some way, shape, or form. Whatever that space or that void that needed to be filled, they filled it for me. And Mr. Riggins was one of those people. And I remember Mr. Riggins, I had got this lump sum from my natural father passing away. It was from his Social Security. And I had blew through the money, right? And Miss Riggins, his wife, I never wanted to tell her, but she's a very, very, very spiritual woman. Her relationship with God is like nothing I've ever seen on this planet Earth, on this plane. It's like Miss Riggins was plucked out of the Bible and put on this earth to be in a home with me because she was that close to God. And she said one day God told her to check my bank account. And I feared this day. I knew I was just hoping that I'll get out of the house and graduate the program long before this had ever happened. But it happened. It needed to happen, number one. But she didn't go herself. She sent Mr. Riggins with me. And I didn't want that to happen because Miss Riggins, even though she could come down on you, she's very nurturing. She's very nurturing. She's a mom. She's very nurturing, and I love Miss Riggins for that. But Mr. Riggins is a man, and he's going to call men or boys to be men. And I remember I was riding in the car. Mr. Riggins, he drove this old white Cadillac Coupe de Ville. Right. Mr. Riggins is a military man, much like myself. He's one of the very reasons, or the reason I joined the military, because I didn't want to let him down. And I figured, what better way to make him proud than to follow in his footsteps. And so he's bald head man. At the time, he was very, very muscular, like huge. All right. Mr. Reagan's probably about 6'3", 6'2", 6'3", somewhere in there. So he's a big guy. And man, we went in that bank, and I could see the anger, the rage just in him. Because Mr. Riggins ended his career as a non-commissioned officer, a sergeant first class, I believe, after 22 years in the military. And so he has a way about him where he's, stoic, calm, cool, collected. But when it's time to give you purpose, motivation, and direction, he will not shy away from it. And I ended my military career as a non-commissioned officer, as a sergeant, a few ranks below that. So I understand the sentiment now and the reason why he behaved the way he did. But I remember we got back in the car after he was shocked to hear the number that the teller told him at the bank. And I remember he punched me in my arm. And then he punched the ceiling and he said, "You are my son. You're going to fix this." And the reason why that brings me to tears and it develops an emotion in me every time I go back to that memory is because that's what I had always yearned for as a young man, for some man to just care enough about me to want the best for me, but do it in such a way as it's not displaying anger just to show pure dominance, but to say that I need you to be better. I need you to be better. I have my vision for you is better than this, and you are letting me down, son. Son, you are disappointing me. Son, my lineage depends on you. You are my son. You will fix this. More is expected of you because you are my son. Man. And it is memories like that keeps me going. It's memories like that is the whole reason why I live my life in the way that I have lived it, why I joined the military, why I got my associate's degree and my bachelor's and, my master's and contemplating my doctorates, why I wrote a book and I'm working on a second book, why I do this podcast. Is because I want the men and the young men who grew up behind me and my descendants, my nieces, my nephews, my sons, my daughters, to be held to a higher standard, that there is more to life than what we see on the block. There is more to life than what we see in our neighborhoods. We are more than a product of our environment, that we have effect on our environment, and we can go out here and do more in this world than we ever thought we could do. And a man has a role in that, and we need men to start being men. It makes me proud to this day that my nephew has joined the U.S. military, and now he has a wife and kids, and now he's traveling the world. And there was a time where I thought that he was going to go down the path that I went down, because he was well on his way. He was in Job Corps in Kentucky and got kicked out. He was thinking about being on the streets and being a street dude. And then he called me one day and said, "Unc, how do I join the Army? I want to get out of here." And I told him the places to go and the people to talk to. And I said, just go to a recruiting station and talk to them and do whatever they tell you to do. And I'm not going to say that his credit is all mine, but I pray to God that I have had a small role to play in that. And that hopefully, God willing, when I get to the pearly gates, God says, "Charles, you being the role model and letting people see your mistakes and telling people about those mistakes and being a voice in their ear of positivity and calling boys to be men. You had a part to play in the trajectory of your nephew's life. And now, instead of doing what we all saw him doing, you provided him a vision. You provided him a pathway. You called him up. You didn't call him out. You helped him understand that, yes, we all started in the same impoverished place. But if you work hard and you work really, really hard, like really, really hard, and you're determined and you have grit and you show mental intensity and intestinal fortitude, and you just have the bravery and the courage to say, you know what, I'm not going to do what everybody else is doing because this is too easy and it's not what I want to do with the rest of my life. You called me up here. I'm going to go have the bravery and the courage to go do something else, do something different, do something hard, because the easy way isn't working. Let me see what are they doing that I'm not doing. They're doing hard stuff, and hard stuff pays more dividends than the easy stuff. Man. Men are needed. Men, you matter. You are needed. What we need is space. As men, just a space. This is why I love podcasts like The Pivot, but specifically The Pivot, because even Shannon Sharp's podcast, it provides space to feel, to fail, to heal, to be heard without judgment. And until society acknowledges emotional isolation, we're not just losing men, we're losing fathers, we're losing brothers, we're losing leaders, and we're losing ultimately legacies. We're losing men every single day who can be helping the world and society become a better place. Men who could be the change that we've been looking for this entire time. But we decided to stunt their growth and kill them emotionally long before they ever stepped into real manhood. And I say this all the time, and I'm going to keep saying it. You've heard it on this podcast. You're going to hear it on every social media platform I ever speak on and have ever spoken on. And that is this. I need you to be the best you so that I can be the best me. And I call all men to say this. I need you to be the best man that you can be so that I can be the best man that I can be. Because only greater men than me can call me to be a greater man than I currently am. I need men to hold me accountable. You need men to hold you accountable. We can only get to those emotionally mature men, those self-aware men, if we allow them the space to develop into such, to allow that space to be an incubator for men to be men. Not the stoic, strong man that you see play out in movies and on television and society, but for men to be men that God idealized and envisioned when he created all of us. For men to be men. And ladies, allow your men the space to be such. Do not box your men in. You are stunting their growth in every single way. That's why many men walk around a shell of themselves, and they cut themselves off emotionally. And we don't value emotions enough. Emotions is a massive part of our personalities, of our self-worth, of who we are as people, as human beings. Emotions isn't just about the here and now and what we feel about a particular situation or topic, but it is who we are. It is the essence of who we are. And if we are forced to push those things down deep and ignore that they ever exist, we're ignoring a part of ourselves that is going to allow us to blossom and become the authentic, unique human beings that we are all created to be. There are some stars that are currently under blankets and pillows and are being sheltered behind walls of distrust and invulnerability because they've decided consciously and been made to push themselves down and belittle their own emotions and cut off their own feelings for the sacrifice of others. And that's a heavy burden to bear and a heavy price to pay. So create a space for men to be men. Truly men, not the bulls that you see running around in a pasture just trying to get from one calf to the next, flexing muscles, showing dominance, but men who are self-aware and are mature enough to help other men become better men. To know what it means to, yes, be a provider and a protector, but also be fathers, sons, brothers, to love, to feel, to acknowledge and have empathy and compassion and consideration for others, to fully envelop the spaces that we hold in society and physically, ultimately to just have presence. Because there's tons of men walking around, but there's those few men, when they walk in a room, everything shifts. They just have a way about them where they was like, oh, okay, I know when this guy shows up, things are about to happen, things are about to change. And whatever I'm suffering with inside, he's going to pull it out of me because his light and his presence forces it to come to the surface. That's a completely different type of feeling. Hey. You all are awesome, amazing, wonderful human beings. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. Thank you for giving me this opportunity and this time to speak to you all. You all are awesome, amazing, wonderful human beings. Don't let anybody tell you anything different. And as always, I need you to be the best you so that I can be the best me. I need you to be the best woman that you can be so that I can be the best man that I can be. I need you to be the best man that you can be so that I can be the best man that I'm destined to be. I want to do what God put me on this earth to do, and I need you to play a part in that because he did not create me to do it all by myself. I need you. The world needs you. Society needs you. Your family needs you. Your relationships need you. Your social circle needs you. Hey, without further ado, it's been awesome. It's been great. Let's make it to episode 100 by the year. Let's make this podcast go further and beyond. Hey, I hope to have guests on soon and to one day be able to financially afford a studio and a space where we can create this incubator of humanity and of feelings and emotions and really get to the deep-rooted issues of society in terms of politics, in terms of sexuality, in terms of religion, in terms of spirituality, Christianity, whatever the topic. Let's get to the bottom of it. That's what we're here to do on Grind Hard, Hustle Smart. Yes, it's a motivational podcast. Yes, we're talking about working hard. We're talking about being present and getting to the things that we want to do in life, but on a deeper level. Grind Hard, Hustle Smart is about helping men and women of all ages, young and old, become the human being, the person, the man or woman that God created them to be. And you're not going to get there in a day. You're not going to get there in 2 weeks. It's a journey. It's a process. It's the grind. So we grind hard and we hustle smart. Have a good one.
Legend status, ask about the name. I've been putting in work, collecting the fame. Up in the stat while they watching the 10 in the game. Either you in it or just a critic, man, we ain't the same. I'm focused on making this history. Into my top 5 list is listing me. I never got an L on pass, this ain't no breeze. I had to make the work outlast. The bill of steam was different degrees. And know I do this here with the ease. It never been easy, slim, just keep one up the sleeve. I saw legend status, ask about the name. I've been putting in work, collecting the fame. Up in the stat while they watching the 10 in the game.